Welcome to Storytime with the Intimacy Ally. Each episode will tear down a myth, kick a social norm in the beanbag, gut punch a sex ed untruth, or destroy a poorly constructed relationship expectation. Get ready to unlearn all the crap you accepted as fact. Strap in for a mind-blowing revision on what sex is and what it can do. Prepare yourself for a whole new thought pattern when it comes to modern relationships. And now, here's your host, Jenny Simus, the Intimacy Ally, relationship expert and certified sex and intimacy coach.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of Storytime with the Intimacy Ally. I am Jenny Simus, also known as the Intimacy Ally. I am your host and a relationship, sex, and intimacy coach. Each week, I'm going to take a story we came up mistaking for fact and knock it on its ass. I'd love to hear from any of you. Let me know if any of this is relatable, what things you would like to unlearn, what things you came up thinking were facts, and now you realize, holy shit, that was just society trying to hold my ass down. So if you have any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear from you at theintimacyally@gmail.com. I'd love for you to come to my website and subscribe and get a free ebook on how to be nice to yourself. So here we go. Oh, and don't forget to like the podcast and find me on social media. Yeah. All right. That's all the things. Today's story I'm going to dismantle is breakups are a sign of failure. Now, why is this story damaging to so many of us as we enter relationships, as we go to or re-enter the dating scene? Well, for starters, it perpetuates the idea that single people are somehow worth less than those who are part of a couple or throuple or pod, depending on, your relationship style. Now, if you want to be part of a couple, cool. If you don't, society shouldn't hold that as a sign that you are not measuring up to others. The world is overpopulated. It's not like a sign that you are not measuring up or like we need to force people to hook up to propagate the species. So let's be real here. Why don't we like the idea of people getting single and remaining single after a breakup? I think people who have familial or coupled responsibilities might be jealous when people exit a relationship and they don't immediately need to find validation by getting into another one. I think it takes real character to stick to your guns after leaving a relationship. And I think it really shows character to stay single rather than be in a relationship just because you feel like that's the only way to be whole. So if someone is trying to make being single sound tragic to you, keep in mind that's just not true. Single people who are emotionally satisfied and have intimate relationships that don't necessarily have to be romantic relationships are successful and just as fulfilled as ones who are bunned up. Don't buy the hype. You are not failing if you become single after a long-term relationship, and it does not mean that you are worth less than you were when you had a partner. Okay. The next common belief, it disallows for the coming of age or transitional relationship to have meaning without implying that they were a failed attempt at a longer relationship. Yes. So I'm sure we all have at least one or two couples or relationship examples in our lives that set us up to believe that puppy love can become true love, can become eternal love. I hate to break it to you, but those couples are the exception, not the rule. Sure, I know a couple. They've been together since 10th grade. But the majority of us who had a boyfriend or a girlfriend in high school do not end up married to that person. It is almost tragically common in pop culture and such a cliche upon divorce to think back to that first love experience and believe that if we had only stayed with them, all our lives would have been perfect and different, and we wouldn't feel the way that we do breaking up with people at 30, 40, and 50 and beyond. But I call bullshit. This goes for relationships that end at those ages and stages as well. Every breakup, every time we don't get it all, every time we lose interest or cannot sustain what interest we had is a learning exercise. It is an opportunity to grow, change, and know ourselves better. So don't beat yourself up that you didn't, stay with the person who was your first love, first fuck, first chance at, really opening up and being intimate with someone. It's all good. Breakups help you grow. So another reason this is just a steaming pile is because we are not meant to be together. There are fundamental differences that are apparent when entering a relationship. Okay. So let's say you get into a relationship with a person and you're like very, very attracted to them, like physically attracted to them. So physically attracted to them that you ignore these red flags of difference. Sometimes we rush into things. It's hard to avoid. Infatuation gets conflated with love. We think we know better than the logical sides of our brains. Whatever it is, we end up with eyes wide open one day and realize, holy shit, this guy is way on the other side of the political jungle spectrum, whatever you want to call it. We also have, the idea, oh, this chick really, really wants kids, and I don't. Or could it be the other way, you know? We also have this lovely habit of hiding ourselves a bit that first date to first year, don't we? I got a whole episode coming up on that, don't worry. But for right now, think about how society's idea that you have to stay with someone and you have to give it your all and fight to keep that relationship has held you in a relationship when it was not good. Like there are things about you or about the person that you were in that relationship with that were not going to change. And yet you kept fighting and fighting and fighting to stay in it. It makes absolutely no sense. And it's just because of this idea that we get in our heads that if we break up, we have failed. That breakups are a sign of failure. And it's simply untrue. Now, number 4 I have is instead of failures, wouldn't it be nice if we could see them as actual opportunities for self growth and exploration? I wanted you to sit with that for a moment. Instead of failures, wouldn't it be nice if we could see them as actual opportunities for self growth and exploration? Now, I understand that this is a tough pill to swallow because it entails self examination and admitting that we were at fault in the relationship that is ending, let's be serious. It's hardly ever 100% one person's fault that a relationship does not last. I am not talking about abusive relationships. I am not talking about relationships where someone is being subjected to violence or coerced to stay. Those are not my forte. If I encounter someone who's looking for coaching and in such a relationship, I suggest highly that they speak to a mental health provider, because something traumatic in your past is probably holding you in that place and making you think that it's okay to be treated with violence or coercion or incredibly debilitating disrespect. Now, so with that, if you can get out, get out. If you have the support, get out. If you need ideas, I know the House of Ruth has been incredibly helpful. And I will put some other links in the show notes in case you have something like that going on. But back to growth. Look, I don't know how many times I've listened to sides of a breakup or the back and forth leading to breakups where each party is professing perfection, or, at least vaguely aligning the fault without actually accepting any of the responsibility for the breakdown of the relationship. If you're a person who sees a pattern in your dating history, it's worth a little bit of self-reflection. If your friends and loved ones tell you that they think you have an issue with commitment, anger, self-loathing, trust, but you still believe that you are just the victim of bad partners over and over again, it might be worth journaling a bit about what makes you pick the partners that you do, what draws you to them, and see if a pattern emerges. And if you tell yourself again and again, as soon as I want them, they don't want me, when it comes to dating, well, take a step back, take a beat, maybe jump off the dating sites for a month or 3. Really dig in and meditate on what it means to you to be wanted. What do you want when you want someone? Do you shower them with gifts? Do you give back their undivided attention? Do you let other responsibilities fall by the wayside to be with them? Do you make them feel overwhelmed or choked out with your initial infatuation stage? Or do you stop trying to hide who you are after a certain number of weeks, number of months, and when your real self comes out, they feel bamboozled and skedaddle? I have a list of self-reflection questions available that I use when it comes to this in coaching. If you find yourself thinking that you did nothing wrong and you're just getting hoodwinked over and over again in relationships, I want you to take some time and be single and really think of a breakup as an opportunity for self-reflection, to recognize your relationship patterns, and to learn how to be a person who goes through self-analysis. If you find it hard, then go to a therapist. See if you can find ways to hold yourself accountable. Make sure that you're using a neutral voice when you talk to yourself that is prepared to see faults, but also to see the good that you bring to a relationship. Next, saying that relationships are all failures leads us to believe someone has to be to blame. Now, in reality, in our logical minds, we know that a breakup doesn't have to mean anyone did anything wrong. Could be that we're just a bad fit. Why hold on to a bad fit? I'm not saying you should go around ghosting people after the third date because it's not a love connection. I feel like ghosting people is such an immature dick move. It's like when people don't say thank you when you let them over in traffic. It just shows a real lack of manners and character. No, not saying to go ghosty on everyone. Just saying if you're not feeling it, it should be fine to say, hey, I'm not feeling it, and just move on. Now, this is obviously advice that I would give to somebody in the early stages of relationships. I am absolutely not suggesting you roll over tomorrow and look at your partner of 20 years and say, just not feeling it. No. Obviously, you are going to have a bit more explanation than that. But if you are in the early stages of a relationship, nobody should be butthurt by hearing, look, we gave this a go. And while I think you have many good qualities, you and I do not align as a romantic couple. And it should be just that easy to say. And people should not feel the need to guilt you or pressure you to stay in such a relationship. And you should not feel like you didn't give it your all or you didn't try hard enough. No, sometimes it is just not right. And that is okay. And I feel like if more people were accepting of that and more willing to try new people on, we'd have a lot more happy daters in the world. Okay, so let's move on to reason number 6, that society should focus more on relationship happiness, satisfaction, and health instead of longevity. People fall out of love. It fucking happens. I am not the same person I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but some people are. Some people knew exactly who they were at 18 and never felt the need to change. For some, adulthood is just like childhood, and that curiosity and that learning new things and developing new passions never went away. So if one of you is growing and changing and the other is standing still, and you're both growing but in opposite directions, then for fuck's sake, take stock of that. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're miserable and deep down you despise each other, everyone around you knows. Your friends, your family, and yes, your children are especially intuitive. You, as a human, deserve to have the 7 aspects of wellness and sexual health. Even if you're not in a constant state of passive aggression and you've just become like roommates, think about what you're giving up to stay. Really analyze if you are staying out of societally induced guilt or if there is something to fight for there. I'm trying to remember which doctor it was. I had read a study. I'm going to have to look it up. And actually, he wrote a book about how we are bad pickers, but also we are bad leavers. Number 7 is some relationships run their course. or they reach the height of their potential to serve us to be better humans faster than others. Now, when this happens, it gives you an opportunity to find someone who is a better match. God closes a door, he opens a window, and all that jazz, right? I find this especially prevalent in the CNM community. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's consensual non-monogamy. There will be an episode about that with some people who are living in it very soon. I remember a friend of mine telling me about the first breakup she experienced after becoming polyamorous. And the people were living together. Okay, so like this core couple was living together, and one partner came to the other and said, "You know what? I'm really grateful for this time that we've had together. I've enjoyed you thoroughly, but I don't feel the passion and interest in you that I used to. And I think that we should end this." And the other partner agreed. And so the one partner packed up and moved out the next day. And that was that. No quarreling, no bargaining, no trying to assess blame or shame. Just an admission that sometimes you have a wonderful time and you're in each other's worlds for a year or two, or maybe it's only a few months, and you add an incredible amount of value and you bring hope and love to another person, and then it's done. And when it's done, you don't have to beat a dead horse. You don't have to make someone else feel crappy that you're done. I couldn't imagine it. I mean, honestly, I've never I've never had a breakup go that smoothly being in monogamous relationships. It seems like such a refreshing alternative to the drama-filled, knocked down dragouts, lots of crying, lots of saying, "I'll change, I'll change." There's no one demanding that, and there's also no one implying that that is easy. And looking at it from this perspective, I think that jealousy issues kept me from ever entering a polyamorous relationship. But it's great to know that so many people thrive in them and either, stay in their core relationships for years, possibly life. But if that relationship were to lose its oomph or value, they wouldn't be scared to honor it for what it was and let it go. Now, for reason number 8, that I wish that breakups weren't seen as failures, it's quite simple that romantic relationships can be quite positive, but they can also crush dreams before they've had a chance to blossom. Now, if you are in a relationship, that means you wouldn't be able to take a job across the country or world. How would you think that leaving it or letting it go is a sign of failure? If the relationship is standing between you and another area of growth in your life, how is that affecting not only your quality of life, but the quality of the relationship? If you are busting your ass to stay in a relationship because it is your only means of satisfaction and everything else in your world is suffering for it, what are you doing? Don't you think that that is a recipe to just hate your other? And it's not going to happen overnight. You're going to think that they're worth it. You're going to think that you are a better person because you are doing this and you're stoically taking care of someone else as opposed to seeking your joy or seeking your purpose. Do you know what makes people feel hopeless and worthless? Losing their purpose or not having anything in their life that makes them feel whole or fulfilled. So if you're sticking around in a romantic relationship because you are thinking that that is all you need to feel satisfied in this life, you are going to make a very angry person of yourself and possibly your partner. Be honest. If you want something that is across the country, across the world, if you want your life to look like a 180 of what you're doing right now, be honest. Don't stay with someone just to have something to hold you back. All right. Another reason that I think that people thinking that breakups are a sign of failure is truly a damaging idea in our society is how it incites cheating without an agreement. Now, what I mean by that is there are relationship styles, even monogamous relationships, where there's an agreement struck between the two partners that, yes, we're monogamous in these ways, but maybe not in these. Maybe an emotional affair is allowed. Maybe a purely physical or sexual affair is allowed in the rules of the relationship set forth by both people. But most of the time, when cheating occurs, it's because someone has stepped outside of the relationship. Stress, desire discrepancies, growing apart, and not caring to repair those issues have created this reason for you to go and seek what you're not getting from your romantic relationship elsewhere, right? And then you have the person who was cheated on trying to figure out what they could have done differently, what they didn't see as a sign that this was coming, how they're disrespected, how they're cuckolded. All of these horrible emotions coming up when really, if we could have just admitted that the relationship had run its course, that letting go of this commitment guilt is all right. Nobody would have had to cheat on anyone because there wouldn't have been a relationship still impacting that. Am I saying that every person who goes through a midlife crisis and is like, oh my God, I don't know if I did the right thing. Maybe monogamy is not for me, should just break up with their significant others? No. But I am saying that if you are thinking about stepping out on the person that you are with, why not just give them the choice? why not just say to them, look, I'm not happy anymore. I am not satisfied. I don't feel good here. And nothing is going to change that. I have tried to think of ways that it will get better. I have tried to come up with ideas on how I can be there for you or how I want to show up for you, and I just can't. I've lost my interest. It's gone. And I need to do something else before I end up breaking my vows or breaking my word or otherwise jeopardizing your feelings. Because we're human. I feel like that's what a lot of this comes down to, honestly, is admitting that we are human and our interests change. You just have to be honest with your person. I think that's a really big thing. And if you can't do that, and if you are going to share yourself in a way that would hurt the person that you're with, let them go. Or at least give them the opportunity to say, you know what? I'm okay with that. So, my last reason that this story is so damaging is that we come up thinking breakups as a sign of failure implies that if there isn't a breakup, we're winning at relationships, right? Like if you've been with your partner for 25 years while everyone else around you has either never married or gone through divorce or gone through a few divorces, man, you get the golden fucking trophy of relationship skills, right? Look, I know people who went through decades and multiple relationships and marriages who found what they were looking for only months before they died. I know people who fall in love every time they try a new person on. I know people who have never felt like they have been truly in love or can define it. And I know people who have been in long-term relationships way past their expiration date and just become dissociated roommates, keeping up appearances. Comparison is a damn killer. Look, it's the reason why we're all so downtrodden after looking at social media all day and comparing our lives to everyone else's. Being in tune with yourself and another person enough, being ready to hear truths from someone else's perspective and not explode emotionally, being able to see that sometimes we drift apart and we learn we weren't right from jump without blame, and being able to accept our own individual outcomes of our lives. These are important lessons that relationships without endings assist to teach us. It is not about winning versus losing. It is about learning what you needed to from the relationship and then being ready to seek help to get past it or self-reflect enough that you don't drag that baggage to the next one. So when you're comparing yourself to that quote unquote winning relationship, keep in mind that the people who are in those relationships may only be keeping up appearances, may have gone through several evolutions to stay that interested in each other, have accepted a huge responsibility to be aware enough to stay, but also change within themselves and within the dynamic of the relationship. But also sometimes it is just not as it seems. And you should not feel like you are losing if you were not able to maintain that. Some people stay together 50 years. Sure. But that doesn't have to be what you are in order to be valid and in order to be a great person and a great catch. I hope you took away some good lessons from this. If you've got a breakup story you'd like to share, please email me at theintimacyally@gmail.com. Put breakup in the subject line. That would be really helpful. Please like, follow, and share this podcast if you dug it. And until next week, breathe and know you're not alone. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Storytime with the Intimacy Ally. We hope you learned a bit more about putting the fire back in your romantic relationships, exploring communication and emotional readiness in all relationships, and how to expand your definition of intimacy so you can reach your relationship goals. Go to theintimacyally.com to subscribe and never miss an episode. Follow the links in the show notes to social media and events. Till next time, keep on learning, growing, and thinking. Storytime with the Intimacy Ally podcast is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered as health or mental health advice.